is how can you ask an interviewer to break down or explain a question you do not understand? So I'm going to read it again. How can you ask an interviewer to break down or explain a question you do not understand? So when you're in an interview, your nerves are bad, and sometimes you may interpret what the person is saying. So the very first thing you want to do in an interview is make sure that you understand the question. So you could ask them to repeat the question to make sure that you have clarity. If you still don't get it, you can repeat what you think the question is back to them. If you're getting it wrong, you can ask them to give an example. You can also to say, can we come back to that question? So it's okay to not know an answer or ask them to break it down more. Because sometimes, again, when you're in an interview, you're nervous and, you forget things. Sometimes your mind goes completely blank. And that happens to the best of us. So in an interview, if you feel like you're not understanding the question, it's okay. Take a deep breath. It doesn't mean that it doesn't look negative on you. Just take a deep breath and just say, can you repeat the question? Or can you explain exactly what you're looking for? Or can you break that down some? I have a question on here. It says, is it appropriate to ask about salary during an interview? So during the initial interview, I always tell people that is not the first thing, or that is not what you want to bring up. Let the person interviewing you bring up salary. You should not let that be the main thing of your question. I would definitely say in the interview, if you're concerned about the salary, if you feel like you must know in the very first interview, you can ask. You can say, can you tell me what the salary range is for this position? So that is one thing that you definitely can say. Can you tell me what the salary range is? I again wouldn't lead with that. I wouldn't let that be my main focus about salary or benefits or what am I getting out of it. You want to get a good feel of the interview or the place that you're going to, because regardless of what the salary is, if it's a bad place to work at, it's a bad place to work at. I mean, they could pay you a lot of money and treat you horrible. Just today, I was talking with some people about places they've worked where they felt miserable. It was miserable going to work. Sometimes they would pull up in the parking lot and it took everything they had to actually go inside the building. So, and they could have been making a ton of money, but that didn't matter. So at the interview is your time to kind of get to know the employer as best you can, because regardless of what the salary is, again, if it's a bad place to work, it's a bad place to work, regardless of what the amount is. If you're going to be late to an interview, should you cancel the interview? So, no, you should not cancel the interview unless it's a complete emergency, not that you're going to be late. You should call and say you're going to be late and ask them, do they still want you to come even though you're going to be late, or can you reschedule? So you don't want to cancel, because cancel means, you're done. You're not even going to try. So if you're going to be late to an interview, you need to call and let them know that you're going to be late. Ask them if you can reschedule or if it's okay to still come late. You never just want to not show up or cancel the interview. A lot of times, lately, people just don't show up for interviews. And that's not cool. I don't know if that's a good terminology nowadays, cool, but that's not cool to schedule an interview and then don't show up. Have the courtesy to, if you're not interested in the position, or if you, for whatever reason, let the person know you're no longer interested. Don't just leave them out there thinking this person's coming. So if you're not interested in the position, just say that. I know I scheduled an interview for today, but I thought it over and I decided this is not the right fit for me. Don't just cancel an interview. What is the most important question an interviewee should ask an interviewer if and when given the opportunity? So, excellent. That's a good question. Thank you, Terry. There's a couple of good questions or important questions that you can ask. One is, when do they plan to make a decision? Because you want to know that. And the reason why you want to know that is because it tells you when you follow up. So not when you send your thank you notes, but when you can follow up. So when you ask them, when do you plan to make a decision? And if they say, well, I plan to make a decision in July. Well, here it's March. At the time of this video, it's March. And they're not even making a decision to July. I mean, then you think to yourself, well, I need to probably keep looking because they're in no rush to hire. So you want to know that, because if they're not making a decision to July and you don't hear from them, but you don't know that, and you don't hear from them for a month, you think, well, I haven't gotten the position. You just let it go, when really they're not even planning to make a decision until July. So the most important question that you can ask in an interview is, when do you plan to make a decision? Because that tells you when you can follow up. Because if they say, I plan to make a decision by Friday, you can ask, will we hear from you either way if we got the position? Because that's the other thing too. Because sometimes you don't hear anything, it falls off. But you can ask, will we hear anything? Because I am very interested. And if for whatever reason I don't get this opportunity, which I do hope I do, I would like to be considered for another opportunity. So that is what you can say back. I have a question that says, what do you do if you're asked what you know about the company, but you didn't do your research? Well, that's a hard position to be in, because you should do some form of research. You should do some form of research when you are going for an interview. You should know something. You should have looked at their social media page or something. Before you walk from your car into the building, you could be looking through their social media page so that you can say something, or on their website so that you can say something about the company. If you don't know anything about the company, that is a poor job on your part, and there's no excuse for that, because you should know something. If it's, you have really cool videos on your Facebook page, or, I see that last year y'all went to Six Flags at the team, for a team company retreat. Something that you should be able to say about the company. It is just not a good look. If you don't know anything about a company and they ask you that, you can say, I didn't have time to look it up, or I didn't have time to do my research. I mean, you're going to be honest, because what else are you going to say? I mean, you're not going to say, hopefully you're not, what else can you say? If you don't know nothing about the company, what are you going to say about them other than, I didn't do any research? And then that's the cards you have to play, because that's the only one you have. But if you have an interview, when you get called for an interview, you need to immediately start doing your research about the company. You can try to, fake your way through, and see how far that gets you, but do your research. And I'm not saying you got to have a notebook and spend 3 hours, stay up late at night trying to know everything about the company. I'm just saying, know something. So when they ask you that question, you can give an answer.